Master credit card or life
Master
will be
credit
hard.
card or li-
I am your guest host, Christopher Paul Dugdale, Media MA. We are Duncanville High School in these United States, and today is May 13th, 2021. And on this date in history, it's a crapload of things. Like Jamestown was founded 410 years ago today. Also, the Mexican War started in 1846, which was 171 years ago today. And then John Paul II was shot in 1981, so that's what, 40 years ago today. Whoa, what a day. So, everyone have a good day today, and someone wants to say hello.
Hi. Do your work. That's all. Bye bye.
Oh, look, do your work. Good advice. What in the AIDS? Okay, there it goes. So, credit cards. Okay, these are things that can be very useful, but they can also be something that can damage your credit for the next 7 to 10 years. Okay, so you want to be very careful when you move into getting a credit card. Okay, they can help cover some of your emergency expenses, like if you blow out a tire and you don't have that kind of thing budgeted. If your engine blows, your clutch goes out, a lot of it car, your air conditioner in your house. Okay. So on the one hand, you have this is one of the ways you can build up charges. Okay, that's kind of the best reason to have a credit card is to do something like that, just to protect yourself if there's a problem. But if you make a late payment, that can hurt the interest rate, and that can also affect your credit score. Now we'll be talking about credit scores in a few days, so today we're just talking about this. Okay, you want to shop around for a good credit card rate. You want something 13% or less. Now realize if you have a 13% interest rate on your credit card account and you borrow $5,000, then within 6 years, if you're only making the minimum payment, you'll almost double the amount that you owe. So you want to be very careful with that. Okay? You want to pay the balance every month. That's the best thing because then you don't have to pay interest. Okay? But again, the minimum payment, it's not set to pay off in anything less than 40 years. Okay? So normally if you spend $500 for that and you're only paying the minimum, you could end up paying $3,000 to $4,000 for that item you only really paid $500 for. Okay? Try not to put anything more on the card than you can pay off in 2 months. And if you're in a massive amount of debt, try to stop using the card altogether until you can get the balance down. So, what are credit cards good for? Now, this is part of the introduction I had just a moment ago, so I don't really need to talk about emergencies anymore. Big ticket items. Now, sometimes you can go to different stores and they'll give you 2 to 3 years to pay off something without any interest. Now, the important thing if you decide to go down that avenue is to make sure you make a monthly payment every month. Because if you don't, then all the interest generally comes due or they change your rate. There's a lot of different things, so you want to be careful when you're doing that. Now, it helps you establish credit because at some point you're going to need to buy a car and a house. And I'm going to use this example for just a moment, and we'll get more into this with the credit talk that we have in a few days. But whenever I got married, my wife bought a car for $10,000. She had a bad credit rating, so she paid $350 a month for 5 years for that $10,000 car. Okay? When we got married, I bought a $15,000 car, and I paid $260 a month for it. So she paid $100 or more for a car that was $5,000 less because of her credit. So you want to be careful of that type of thing also. Okay? It also gives you some protection from fraud on the internet. Having a credit card, there's certain things in place so that if it's not actually your charge. Otherwise, it's a much more difficult avenue to go through. So types of credit cards, okay? So with credit cards, you have a credit line, and depending on how well you make your payments, they can increase that credit line over time. So you might get a card that opens up at $500, and 3 or 4 years down the line, you might have a $5,000 to $10,000 balance. Okay, the available credit will go up and down based on purchases and payments. So if you make a payment, generally the same day they'll make it available, because the way that credit card companies make money is off the interest off of things that you buy. Okay? Again, they want you to pay on it for 40 years if they can. Okay? Charge cards. Okay? This is whenever you pay all charges in full every month by the due date. You cannot carry a balance. Okay? No balance is equal to no interest. And some cards will charge a balance carryover for certain charges. Okay? Secured credit cards. Let's say that you have a name like Michael and you're bad with money and you can't get a credit card, but you're trying to establish credit. Well, you can go to one of these, maybe your bank or to a credit card institution, and say, hey, I would like a secured credit card to establish credit. He would give them $500, and they would give him a credit line of $500. And then if he pays that for the next 2 to 3 years, or maybe even 1 year, just depending on how much he uses the card, it could make it so that he can actually get a non-secured credit card, and then he would get his $500 back. But the whole thing about getting a secured credit card is you give them $500 and they give you a $500 balance to make sure that they're not going to lose any money. So it's a way of protecting them and helping you build credit. So subprime credit cards. If you have bad credit, credit card companies still want you because they can really, for lack of a better term, screw you over. Now, normally they have low lines of credit, but they have very high interest rates. So they might charge you 30% interest on something, which means that in the time of about 2 to 3 years, depending on how much you borrow, you can double or triple it in almost no time whatsoever. Okay? Then you also have prepaid cards. These are popular as gift cards, or for people that are traveling, or parents who want to give their kids a card but have some type of protection. Because if you lose these cards, sometimes they will get replaced. You just have to look at what's going on with that. So, okay, types of credit card offers. So once you turn 18, these will start filing through your door. Again, credit companies would love to take advantage of you, at a young age, so that you will be paying off theirs for a long time, or you'll make stupid purchases that will cripple you unless you pay off the card. Their job is not to really support you, but to make money off of you. Okay? And the more money they can make off their stupidity, the better it is for them. So you have some cards that are pre-approved. Okay? So if you have a credit history, you'll get cards all the time that say, hey, you have a $5,000, $10,000, or $50,000 limit depending on how good your credit is. Okay? So, anyway, so that's one type of card. There's one that says invitations to apply. And this is where it says apply for our credit card. And these go randomly out to everyone. And they don't have all the terms generally whenever you get this, but it's normally an offer for you to get a credit card. Okay? Again, this could be a trap where you get really bad interest rates. And then you also have instant credit at stores when you're about to check out and they say, hey, if you put this on a, whatever the name of our company is, credit card, then we'll give you 10% on your first purchase. Okay? And people do that, and then they might forget to make a payment. And several of these credit cards will have a late payment charge of $30, $40. It just depends. So there's a lot of things that are hidden in there. Okay? You want to compare basic terms. Every one of your credit card offers will look like it does over there to the right. Okay? If you can, you want to avoid any type of card with an annual fee or monthly fee. Okay? So you might look for an annual fee and not notice there's a monthly fee. And here on this card, it's $119 every year. Okay? There's also a $30 fee for if you have a spouse or a lover that you want to provide a card for. You see there at the bottom it says there's a $35 fee for late payment. If you go over the limit of the card, there's a $35 charge. Or if you give them a check that bounces, there's a $35 charge. So let's say that you have a bank account with Chase. So that's a $35 charge from the credit card company and a $35 charge from your checking account. So $70 because of a bad check that you wrote. Okay, so looking down here, balance transfers. Sometimes you can take a credit card balance from one card and transfer it to another, and they won't charge that, and they'll sometimes give you 6 months to pay it off. But they generally know that if you do that transfer, the odds are that you're not going to pay it off in that time. They're going to make money off of interest. And not only that, but you'll probably buy things with them and make more money for them. Okay? There are limits generally to how much you can transfer, but that is kind of a trap that can either help you or hurt you. Because sometimes they'll offer 0 interest for 6 months, and then they'll ramp it up to 20%. So you want to be careful if you're doing this. Cardholder agreements. They send this out with every new credit card, and this is a legal contract between yourself and the company that issued the card to you. You need to make sure you read everything when you do that. I know you've been probably accustomed to just going and clicking agree to everything, but you have no idea how bad or what type of deal you'll be dealing with if you do that. Okay? So they can also send out notices with your statements, so you want to look over your statements too. Okay? And if you don't make payments in a certain period of time, they can also change your rate or have what's called a variable rate that can go up to about 35%, is about the highest they can take that. But a 35% credit card means that you'd be tripling the balance on it every 3 years. So be careful with that. The annual percentage rate, APR, you probably heard this term before. Card's interest charge, it's expressed as a yearly rate. It's usually for purchases, or if you withdraw cash, you might have to pay a higher rate. They're what's called variable rates, and this is when their APR will change. So their interest rate on your card could change from month to month, and it could go up substantially. So you want to try and get one that's locked in at a certain rate, and generally you can find a card that does that if you shop around. The prime rate is the rate that banks charge their most qualified borrowers, and some credit cards actually will get their start from this and borrow money from banks and pay it back off of the payments of the people that are using their cards. You make a fortune that way. And the fixed rate, this is really the one that you want. They can't ever change for any reason. Okay? So just want to read through your paperwork whenever you're trying to figure out which cards you want. Default or penalty rates. Okay? So with some credit cards, your interest rate can go up if you have a late payment or you have a decline in credit somewhere. So if you're spending more than you have on your account and it sends back a decline, then that could make your interest rate go up and your payments go up. And I know all this stuff is super boring, but it is pretty important also. Okay? Late payment, bounce check, if you mail them a check and you don't have money to pay for it in your account, that can affect your credit rate. I mean, not your credit rate, but your interest rate. Okay? Minimum monthly payment. Now, there were some changes before. Credit card companies were not required to put together a monthly payment for you that would pay off your credit card in your lifetime. Okay, so you could spend 50 years paying for the same purchases, or it just would accrue more and more interest. And then when you went to try and buy a house, you couldn't because of the fact you hadn't been paying your credit card or that your balance had gone up so high. Okay, so there's normally a grace period on your credit card to where if you pay off your credit card by this date, then you won't have to pay any interest for the month. Okay, but the payments they generally give you are the lowest amount that you're required to pay. And generally this is either a dollar amount, might be $20, or it might be whatever, the minimum might be whatever it takes to pay off the card in 40 years. Okay, so you could pay more, depending on what you buy on your credit card than you do for a house. Paying the minimum amount does very little to reduce the amount you have to pay every month, especially if you have a monthly fee on your account, to where $130 may not sound like much a year, but it's something that can really start to bump things up. Okay, Also, time of day when you make the payment. Just make sure you look at all the terms whenever you are getting your card. Okay, dispute rights. Okay, so let's say that there's a charge on your card for $300 to a company you don't recognize, and so you see that amount. You can look at it and you can call the credit card company and dispute it if it's a purchase that you didn't make. Now, generally, when you make a purchase, you'll either put in your PIN number, give them the 3-digit code on the back of your card, or you'll sign something, and that's evidence that you actually made the purchase. Okay? But it could be that they charged the wrong amount. You went to Red Lobster the other day, and the waiter changed your tip from $6 to $26. And that does happen from time to time where they do that, so it's always important to check that amount. You could have ordered something and it was shipped to your house from Amazon and you refused the package, but you're still charged. Okay? So something could have been damaged when you receive it, something that wasn't delivered, or something that you took into your house and was damaged. Those are all types of things that kind of fall under that same list. Annual fees, this is something that we talked about earlier. These are common on a lot of different charge cards. There's rewards or airline miles that are included on this. Okay? And there might be an annual fee with that. Now, some of the rewards might be something helpful to you. It might be something where I know my credit card gives cash back. And so depending on how much you use your card, that could be a lot of money, or you can use it for airline tickets. There's a bunch of different ways that they do rewards, but not all credit cards have rewards. Now, application fees, these are normally for credit cards that are going to be something that are going to be a problem for you. If you have decent credit, no one will ever charge you an application fee for a credit card. Okay? Now, some of the subprime cards or secured cards, you might have to pay something to open the account. Okay? Now, they can do up to 25% of your initial limit. Now, depending on how high or low that is, that could be a pretty decent chunk. I mean, if they give you a $1,000 limit, that could be a $250 fee. Okay? But if you're trying to build credit, one of the best ways to do that is the secured credit card, and I talked about that a little bit earlier. So let's say you have a large credit card balance, and you're making payments, but you're having a hard time making a dent in it. They have what's called you can transfer a balance to another credit card. So if you're with Chase now and you want to go to Capital One, then you transfer over your money to that, and they normally tell you for about 6 months to a year, you don't have to pay any interest on that. So if you can pay down the balance in that time, it can save you a lot of money. But it could be that you're transferring your balance to a card that has a much higher interest rate, and you want to be careful about doing that. So anyway, sometimes they do charge a fee or an interest rate, so they might charge you 3%. So if you're transferring over $10,000, that'd be $10,300. Okay, and then if they don't charge you interest for the next year, then you could pay it down, and $300 might not be that bad. It just depends on the terms. Okay, and sorry to whip you with this, but make sure you check that before you do anything. Cash advance fees. This is one way for you to get cash out without having to get a loan. You can get an advance from your credit card, but you generally are going to pay a lot of fees and a lot of interest as a result of it. So this is one of those, you don't want to get a payday loan. Avoid those at all cost. But this is one that can also cause you a lot in charges. You'll normally pay a percentage, and then you'll pay a higher interest rate on that, just to explain how that works. So it's out of your credit card, it's out of the balance that you have available, and it's a way for them to make more money off of you and feel guilt-free. Currency conversion fees. So if you're overseas and you make a purchase with your credit card, they have to change the money from that currency into into U.S. currency. So generally what they'll do is they'll take the lowest rate over the last 30 days to come up with the interest rate that they're going to, or not the interest rate, but the exchange rate that they give you, which could cost you, 20 to 30%. So if you're out negotiating for a low price, you think you have it, use your credit card, you might lose a lot just in the conversion from their currency to American currency. Late fees, we've kind of already addressed this, but this can change your interest rate. This can also lead to a $30 to $50 fee depending on which credit card you're using. So it's one of those additional things that just say, read the terms of whatever credit card you're getting and realize there's no such thing as free money. So, credit limit, you want to be careful not to have your balance too close to your limit, because the closer you are to your limit, the more it adversely affects your credit score. Okay? So if you have a card with a $5,000 balance, but you have a balance under $1,000, that's good for your credit limit. But it's bad for your credit card if you have a $4,000 balance on a $5,000 limit, because then you're using the majority of your credit, and it just shows that you're not as good at taking care of your money as you might think you are. That's how credit card companies take it, so just be careful with that. Hey, thank you for another great day. I hope you all had a great day. Be safe. Don't cocaine. Don't AIDS. And don't COVID, even if you think that you're fine. If you see someone COVIDing out, go up to them and go, hey, give me full-blown COVID like you. And then you take the vials of COVID and you pour it in your eyes and in your mouth and then inject it into your directly into your spleen, which would be very difficult to do. Don't do that, okay? I'm your teacher. I will write you up if you do it, so please don't, okay? So this is Doug Dell, and I'll see you on the other side.